Open your Bibles tonight to Luke 15. I am going to change just a little bit the verses we read. Luke 15, going to begin reading with verse 13. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. When he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. Last week, we looked at this young man in part 1, and we saw that this young man was impatient. Lord, Dad, I want it, and I want it now. He was very selfish. He wanted his portion regardless of how it affected anyone else. We looked at the father briefly and saw that the father could not or would not tell him no, and we compared that to parents today who just can't seem to say no to their kids. And I gave several illustrations of that. This father just handed over half of his wealth to this younger son because the younger son said, I want it, and I want it now, and so the father gave it to him. You know, and I see parents all the time, and I won't get real personal, but they buy their kids anything their kids throw a fit for. All the kid has to do is say, I want it. No. You know, they throw a conniption fit until the parent finally gives in and gives them what they want. I mentioned a little bit last week that most kids have got 4,516,395,414 presents in their closet, of which they only play with one or two. But they want it. I want it. And so parents have to run out and get it no matter what the cost because little Junior wants it. This is led in part to the idea today that everybody has a right to everything. And I'm not going to rehash that, but they have a right to a house. They have a right to a car. They have a right to a cell phone. They have a right to this and that. And they think that somebody else should pay for all the stuff they want. One of the things I hear from adults and kids, and I don't think anybody here thinks like this. If you do, let me open your eyes. The idea today is the government will pay for it. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. The government will pay for it. And the question I ask, do you understand? The government takes my money to pay for your stuff. Tell me what's wrong with that scenario. But that's the mentality of kids today. Kids today get anything they want simply by asking or nagging, and they don't feel like they have to work for it. I told you that when I grew up, if I wanted a candy bar, I had to go out somewhere and earn that nickel to get, used to be a big candy bar. Now a nickel won't even get you a little bite candy bar. But my dad taught me, you want it, work for it. And that idea has stayed with me through most of my life. Many people today don't know how to work. They don't know how to work, and even if you give them a job, well, they're not going to take it because they don't want to work. And if you do force them to work, they cop an attitude. And I ran into this. Yesterday was my brother's birthday, so I went up, took him out to lunch to one of his favorite hamburger joints, and we went in. And I walked in, there was a lady in front of me, I let her go first, and she walked up, and the cashier, the lady taking the orders, said, I'm not talking to you. Go somewhere else. I'm not dealing with you. So she turned to me, I thought it was he until the manager told me it was she. She turned to me and said, what do you want? I said, this lady was first. I ain't waiting on her. I'm not fooling with her. What do you want? I said, for one thing, I'd like for you to adjust your attitude. If you don't like my attitude, go somewhere else. That was the attitude. If you don't like my attitude, go somewhere else. By that time, the other employees had her down, pushing her out, pushing her back. But it's like, you know what? You're in public work. You have to be nice to people when you're in public service. But that's the attitude of many kids today. If you don't like what I do or don't do, fine, lump it, take somebody else. Back to my notes. Tonight I want to go a little bit farther into the life of the young prodigal. But then very briefly, I'm going to look at his father and also his brother, his older brother. In thinking of that, let's begin where we read tonight. In point 1, God broke this young man. And I don't mean just financially. Sometimes God has to break us to get us to the point where we can do what he eventually did. Notice, he had wasted all of his money pleasing himself. And he made no plans for the future. He didn't lay up anything for the future. He didn't think about, hey, this money can only last me so long. And he didn't think about any of that. His only concern was what enjoyment can I get here and now with what I have. In verse 13, it said that he wasted his substance with riotous living. Well, I had an idea what riotous meant, but I wanted to look it up. And there's a long list of things, but I summed it up into 4. Disorderly, unruly, uncontrolled, and lawless. He wasted his life in his substance, in disorderly living, unruly, uncontrolled, unmanageable, lawlessness. He wasted it. And we could possibly say that today we would classify him as being addicted to these things, addicted to, sex, addicted to alcohol, addicted to whatever else is included. He was addicted, and he wasted it with disorderly, unruly spending. Verse 30 said, as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots. So we find out where a lot of his money went. It was satisfying the pleasures of the self for a short time. So I was thinking of this. He had the same attitude as the rich man did over in Luke chapter 12. His crops had brought forth bountifully. He said, I've got more than my barns can hold. I'm going to tear down my barns. I'm going to build bigger barns. And then I'm going to sit back and I'm going to take it easy. Jesus said in Luke 12:19, Well, I'm sorry, the man said, I'm going to eat, I'm going to drink, and I'm going to be merry. I'm going to be happy. I've got all of this money, and I'm going to use all of God's blessing. I'm going to use all that God has given me to satisfy myself, eating, drinking, and making myself happy. God said, you're a fool. You're a fool. Did you ever notice how many times, and I didn't notice this until this week, when I was studying for this morning and then also for tonight, did you ever notice how many times the Bible speaks negatively about eating, drinking, and being merry? It's actually there a lot more than I thought it was when I began looking at it. And then the thought hit me, are we that different today? Let me ask you a couple of questions, and I'll get my answer by looking at you. How many of us have played the, what do you want to eat tonight? Do you know we spend more time thinking about what we're going to eat than we do reading our Bible, than we do praying, than we do meditating on things of God? What are we going to eat? Oh, I don't care, whatever you want. Well, I don't care, what do you want? I don't care, what do you want? And we end up eating something neither one of us want. How much time do you spend thinking about food? Here's another one. Where do you want to eat? My wife already knew that one was coming. Well, I don't know. What sounds good to you? Well, I don't know. Where do you want to eat? Well, I don't care. Where do you want to eat? And we'll spend 15 minutes. I say we collectively will spend 15 minutes trying to decide where we want to eat. And when we can't reach a decision, we go home and eat a cheeseburger or cheese sandwich or hot cheese or whatever that's called. How much time do we spend? How much time do we spend thinking about eating and drinking and partying, making ourselves happy? I remember a couple of years ago, I had my taste set for one particular restaurant. So I told my wife, I said, I don't know why, but I've had this taste all day. We're going to this restaurant tonight. And you know, we went there and I ordered what I always order, but it just didn't taste the same. I left and I thought, what a waste of time. This guy the rich fool wasted his money, or planned to, eating and drinking and making himself happy. But are we really that different? Are we really that different? Many young people today are just like this young prodigal. They want everything now. I remember, and I can still remember when I was in high school, they had a senior prom. I didn't go, never did go, but you had to be a senior to go to the prom. Well, then the juniors felt left out. So it became a junior-senior prom. You had to be graduating from high school before they had a formal ceremony. You know, we had the big high school graduation, big thing, big deal. Now they have a junior high graduation. Then it became elementary graduation. Then it became kindergarten graduation, because we don't want the kids to feel left out. Am I off base? Am I wrong? Or have we allowed kids to literally take over our lives, and they don't want to wait? I don't want to wait till I'm a senior. Okay. We'll do a junior and senior. Well, the sophomores, I don't want to wait till I'm a junior. Okay, we'll do a junior high. whatever that is. We didn't have that when we had elementary and high. That was it. I remember reading several years ago, and the exact numbers may be a little off, but the story is correct. I remember reading a psychology book, and it was telling how that little kids don't want to wait. And I thought, boy, I can think of a lot of adults. The experiment went like this. They would take a little child about 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range, put him in a room by himself with a chair and a table, and they would put a candy bar on the table. And they would tell the kid, okay, I'm going to leave. I'll be gone, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it was. If you do not eat the candy bar, I'll give you 2 candy bars when I get back. Almost way over half of the kids wouldn't wait 30 minutes to get 2 candy bars. I've got 1. I'm going to eat it now, and I'll worry about if I don't get the second one, no big loss. Isn't that the way we are sometimes? Isn't that how we behave? Moses chose God over the pleasures of sin for a season. Sin can be pleasurable. It can be, at least for a short time. But in the end, Satan's sole purpose is to devour you. When Satan offers you pleasure, rest assured, he is not offering you pleasure except for the sole purpose of devouring you. Well, back to this young man. God knows how to bring down any and all of us. Riches very seldom bring happiness. Look at all the movie stars who have committed suicide. Look at all the movie stars who have OD'd and killed themselves, overdosing on drugs. Look how many are married and divorced and married and divorced and married and divorced. They're looking for happiness, and money can't buy happiness. Someone once said, money can't buy happiness, but it's a whole lot better to cry in a Rolls Royce than it is a Volkswagen. It doesn't matter whether you're driving a Lamborghini or a 1979 junker. Money cannot buy happiness. Ask the millions of people that have tried it. God knew how to bring him down. His friends left him when the money ran out. I thought of what Solomon said in Proverbs 14:20. The poor is hated even of his neighbor, but the rich, underline the word rich, the rich hath many friends. As long as you got money, everybody wants to be your friend. But when the money ran out, this poor boy found himself friendless. Now let me say, and I'll say it again after a while. In the Bible, it is not sin to be rich. It is not sin to be rich. It isn't money that is sin, but it's the love of money that is sin. When you begin to put more emphasis on money than you do on reading your Bible, than you do praying, than you do going to church, than you do, serving God, when money becomes your all in all, that money has become a curse to you, not a blessing. 1 Samuel said, the Lord maketh poor and maketh rich. He bringeth down and he lifteth up. God knows how much you've got, and God knows exactly where to hit you. God knows if you have made money your primary purpose, God knows exactly how to bring you down. In Proverbs 11:4, riches profit not in the day of wrath. When you die, how much money are you going to take with you? Now, I had a funeral. This was many, many years ago. It was after I came to Florence, but it was many, many, many years ago. We had a member who has long since moved away, moved out of town. But they had a family member that died, and the family had no religion at all, nothing religion about them. And so this man said, "Would you preach the funeral for me?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Now, I've got to warn you. They're going to put a fifth of whiskey in the casket so he can have it to take with him." I said, "Fine. I'm not going to stop them. I'm going to preach the gospel no matter what they put inside the casket." And I did. But riches profit not in the day of wrath. Riches will do you no good when you stand before God. Proverbs 21, he that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. This young man found himself with no money, no job, no savings, no food, and no place to sleep. He had reached rock bottom. Well, not yet. He hadn't reached rock bottom yet, but he's fixing to. The Bible said that to make things worse, God sent a mighty famine in the land. In verse 14. Just when you think things can't get any worse, God said, "Oh yes, I'm going to send a famine, and I'm going to make it even worse on you." And then in verse 14, for the first time in this young man's life ever, it says in verse 14, he began to be in want. His whole life, he had never known want. He had everything he could want, had everything he could hope for. But God took him down to where he found himself in want. Verse 15 said he was sent to care for pigs. Now, it's called swine, but that was the word for pigs. Now, I'm going to give you the answer, but let me ask a real quick question. Does anybody besides me see a major problem with this? What was this guy? He was a Jew. You know what Jews and pigs had in common? Absolutely nothing. Under the Mosaic law, Jews were not permitted to eat pork. They were not permitted to eat anything. They were not permitted to touch a pig. They were not permitted to have anything to do with pigs. Pigs were unclean. So to make matters even worse, this guy has to spend time caring for pigs. Unclean, filthy. To make it even worse, he had to eat the husk that fell from the pig food. But the husk that the swine did eat. Talk about reaching rock bottom. God has taken this young man from being the son of a wealthy person to being absolutely broke. Broke. And with the famine, there wasn't much else that he could do. And I've said this, and I want to drill this point home. God knows exactly how to break every one of us. like Jonah. God had to break him completely and totally to get him to the point of surrender and do what was right. For the first time in his life, he had to admit how filthy and unworthy he was. For the first time in his life, he had to realize just how good he really had it before. For the first time in his life, he acknowledged his dependency on someone else. He acknowledged his utter helplessness. I'm in a situation, there is nothing I can do. I can't help myself. I can't climb out of this mess. I can't wish it away. I can't hope it away. I can't do anything. I am at rock bottom, and there is absolutely nothing that I can do to help myself except go back to my Father and see if I can become a servant. I'll settle for just being a servant. I once was a son. I once was a child of a very wealthy man. But God has broken me. And now, instead of asking to be restored to sonship, I'll be happy just to be a slave. Very quickly, let's notice the Father. And I'm thinking very seriously about coming back to the Father next week and maybe even the Son. But let's look quickly at the Father. The Father knew of his past sins. I said, oh, his father didn't have a clue what he was doing. Oh, yes, he did. He knew exactly what his son was doing. He knew that his son had wasted it. But the father did not immediately go to his rescue. And if I do this next week, I'll repeat this portion. Sometimes you have to stand by and let God deal with the person until they break. Then he went to his father. His father never gave up hope of his return. In fact, the father was constantly looking for his son to return. His father never gave up hope. And when he came back, his father ran to meet him, hugged him, and restored him to sonship. Now, he had forfeited any inheritance. He had forfeited any additional blessings. He had given up the right to any blessings other than being adopted back to son and being fed and clothed and having a place to sleep. He had already wasted his inheritance. There was nothing else except being restored to sonship. Folks, sin will ruin you. Sometimes it'll ruin your life. Sometimes it'll, Paul talked about there in Corinthians, we shall all stand before God. Some will have good wood, hay, and stubble. Some would have gold and silver and precious stones. They were both saved, but one had forfeited any additional rewards or blessings. His brother could not or would not rejoice in his return. His brother refused to forgive him. So what are some lessons for us? Us and money. Money has ruined many people's lives. When we were first married, and I know I've told this to some of you, if we had, I know, things were a lot cheaper back then. If we had $10 to buy groceries for a week, we were eating high on the hog. We could actually have bacon along with our eggs in the morning. Now our problem is not what are we going to eat, it's where and what. It's not, oh, we don't have any food in the pantry. We're like Mother Hubbard. No. The question most of us, and I'm looking at all of you, the question isn't we don't have money to buy food. The question is we have money that we spend time where and what. Those are the things that we often do. Listen to what Jesus said. Matthew 19:23, Jesus said unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to give up his hope and trust of money. Zacchaeus being one very obvious exception. Luke 12, God said unto him, Thou fool, this night shall thy soul be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. When you die, you've been so frugal. You have worked hard. You have saved hard. You've accumulated a little wealth. What's your kids going to do with it when you die? Proverbs said, talking about a rich man, that you don't know whether he'll be a fool or whether he'll be a good spirit, but now suddenly he's in charge of everything that you own. Matthew chapter 6, Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. I repeat myself, I'll say it again and again. There is nothing wrong with having money if God gives it to you. The problem comes in is when we begin to focus on that money. We begin to worship that idol, that image, that money. I've read the New Testament through many times. I don't see anywhere in any of the Apostle Paul's writings that he ever condemned anybody for being rich. I've read the New Testament many times. But we do find that when money becomes your God, money becomes your image, and you spend more time worrying about your money and who might steal it. I remember, this has been many years ago. We knew a couple that apparently they were richer than anybody knew. As we were talking to them one day, and this was back, during the crash of whatever year it was. I was alive, so it wasn't the Great Depression. But they lost over $100,000 in one day. And it's like, who has $100,000 to lose in one day? I know preachers who first thing to get up in the morning is open the Wall Street. How did my stocks do? Honestly, the church has a retirement for me, and I certainly appreciate it. But I couldn't tell you if it's up or down. I don't even know what it's invested in, because to me, I really don't care that much. I'm thankful that you folks have provided it. But I don't worry about it. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. And worrying about it isn't going to help the stock market, nor is it going to help me. There's nothing wrong with money. I want to emphasize that. So long as you understand that money is a tool. Don't worship it. Don't idolize it. It's not wrong to be rich. And I'm saying that over and over and over. I was accused one time of being anti-rich people. I'm not. I'm thankful for those. But I have seen money ruin many, many people. Notice the pleasures of sin. I have a ball when it's hard to go anywhere without them serving alcohol, other than maybe McDonald's, Wendy's. I don't know. Does Wendy's serve alcohol now? I don't even know. I know a lot of restaurants that used to not are now. So when we sit down, it's like, would you like to start off with a glass of wine? And it's like, no, thank you. I'm a Christian and I don't drink alcohol. And it's like, oh, okay. You know how people get addicted to alcohol? You know how they get addicted? They don't get up one morning and say, oh, I'm going to become addicted to alcohol. Pornography. And I guess I didn't realize how bad of a problem this is. There are now groups, therapy groups, like addiction, Gamblers Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. There are now, and I don't even know what it's called, but, pornographers Anonymous. People that have gotten so addicted that they can't control themselves. They have no control because all they want is the pleasures of sin for a season. Homosexuals, and all of that route, all of those avenues. They want that moment of pleasure, and they don't care how they get it, where they get it, who they get it, as long as they get it. And then my final point is a lesson on forgiveness. The elder son said, I'm sorry, I have no sympathy for him. I have no sympathy whatsoever. He made his bed, let him lie in it. He brought this upon himself. Whatever happens, he deserves. And he even became angry and bitter when his dad helped the young man get food and clothes and a place to sleep. He became angry at his dad. I will not forgive my brother. I immediately thought of Galatians 6. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual. And I could stop right there. You know who it is that never forgives, always carries a grudge, always bitter and angry? I don't know everything about them, but I know they're not spiritual. I don't care how often they go to church. I don't care how often they read their Bible. He said, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness. Now, this is not something that you plan. This particular man was overtaken in a fault. And it could happen to any of us. The wrong place, at the wrong time, in the wrong circumstances, with the wrong attitude, the wrong mind, the wrong heart. Any of us are susceptible to sin. But when a brother is overtaken, he wasn't looking for it, he didn't plan it, he had not deliberately partaken of it, he's overtaken, then those who are spiritual are to restore him in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. I learned in college, watching several preachers, one that if I were a gambler, I would have bet $1,000,000 to 1. This guy was as faithful as any man could ever be to his wife. And then one day he was overtaken. Cost him his family, cost him the church, cost him just about everything. And I would have bet 1,000,000 to 1 that was the last guy on earth that would have ever been overtaken in that particular sin. And I learned then and there, never say never. I will never do that. Well, you need to stop and consider yourself, lest thou also be tempted. God has protected me for all these years, and I'm thankful. But there have been other sins that I have succumbed to. I'm not talking adultery, murder, not talking anything like that. But when somebody is overtaken in sin, we demonstrate the love of Christ. We restore them after evidence of repentance. We restore them because you know what? It could be me. And if I fell, I would want other Christians to help lift me up and upon repentance, help me be restored. Bitterness will destroy you just as much as riotous living will.